Hello everyone, I'm Alan Barty.
I'm Kayla Benson.
And I'm Talon Jones.
Today we're going to be talking about movies that haunted our childhoods. The movies we're going to be talking about are Coraline, Killer Clowns from Outer Space, and the It, the miniseries. This is going to be the verdict. Spoilers ahead. The fiction that scared us when we were children are things that forever will be with us no matter how much we age. They can even play a part in the type of person we become. It's time for us to confront these horrors right here on The Verdict. Ooh, my bad. Right now, we're going to be talking about Coraline. Now, people who haven't watched Coraline is, of course, about Coraline, who discovers a magical door within her new house that transports her into another world that looks like her world. But instead, her mother cooks delicious food, her father is always attentive to her, but there is a darker and more serious tone. Let's look at that trailer.
Coraline Jones always dreamed of finding a better world. A world more exciting than this. But never did she imagine that she'd discover it in her own home. A parallel place
We've been waiting for you, Coraline.
where parents are always fun
I love your garden! Can't believe you did this!
and everything is so good
What's shaking, baby?
it just can't be real.
Mom?
You're just in time for supper, dear.
You're not my mother. My mother doesn't have... But...
Buttons? Do you like them? I'm your other mother, silly.
You probably think this world is a dream come true,
My name!
but you're wrong.
You do like it here, don't you, Coraline? You could stay here forever. There's one tiny little thing we need to do. Black is traditional.
She's got this whole world where everything's better, but it's all a trap.
You may come out when you've learned to be a loving daughter.
From Henry Selick, the director of The Nightmare Before Christmas, comes a world of extraordinary imagination. Spooky secrets
Who are you?
You're in terrible danger, girl.
and daring discoveries.
I still have to find my parents. To set them free?
This year, when adventure comes knocking,
Choo-choo!
there are some doors that should never be opened. Coraline, written for the screen and directed by...
And welcome back. So the reason I picked this movie is because it really did kind of freak me out as a kid. Especially towards the ending where it gets to more like the crazier, like fantastical elements where everything starts falling apart and the mother like slowly unravels herself to be like this very demonic creature. And I just remember having nightmares of one day waking up and seeing my mother with button eyes and knowing like, well, I guess I'm doomed. But the thing about this movie is that it does a really good job of giving, especially from the beginning, a very sinister tone, especially with the mother, because throughout the movie you're constantly hearing these like even the soundtrack is very, I guess you could say, use a lot of bell tones and choirs and use a lot of made up language to convey the atmosphere, and it just gives you a very uneasiness where, okay, this seems very happy and good on the surface, but I can tell this person has a very more sinister game at play.
I remember seeing this movie when I was a kid, around the time it came out on DVD, and I remember it actually did get under my skin. It didn't scare me, but it did get under my skin, and I could understand this would scare a lot of kids, especially seeing how there are dead children in a PG movie. Mm-hmm. Same rating that Frozen is, mind you. This is a movie where the parental guidance, it's there for a reason. But it's still very imaginative and fun.
I'm kind of the opposite because, like, I always kind of grew up with, like, Henry Selick and, like, Tim Burton and all them. So I actually loved the movie as a kid, and it's still one of my favorite, like, comfort movies. Like, I have the entire, like, script memorized. I love buying, like, Leica merch. So mine's the complete opposite. I loved the movie as a kid.
I wouldn't say it's the opposite. I loved it too. Like, I enjoyed the movie. I just understood that this would scare some kids, but I absolutely adored the film. In fact, I've actually found out years later it's based on a book, but I never even touched the book. I never read it. Have either of you read the book?
I mean, I think I read like the first chapter book because I was interested, and what I imagine that the book is very close to the actual movie, so it was a very like good adaptation. I mean, I'd rather bet, like, if you ever watch the movie, like, it starts with, you know, like, the other mother making the Coraline doll. It's not very, it's like one of those things where it's not graphic with no blood, but it seems that she's actually ripping skin off of something and folding it and contorting it and everything. And so it does lean, of course, it is very kid-friendly in some areas, but it does kind of lean the edge of very, you know, challenging what kids can be afraid of, you know what I mean?
Well, movies like this used to be very common in the 80s, you know, kids' movies that could get pretty scary, like Don Bluth films especially. So this kind of goes back to that, and this also launched the new production company, Leica. This was their first major production, and since then they've made absolutely amazing films. Honestly, I like their follow-up film, Paranorman. I actually like that one better, personally, but also, like, I also like the Box Trolls, but Kubo is like a masterpiece of animation that they made. So, in this movie, opened the door for all of those. So,
and the thing I will say is that there is more adult themes also. Like, there's one scene, especially when Coraline goes, I think, to the other world the second time, where she goes to the theater, and there are some kind of risque things where I'm like, I don't know if that's allowed. Just saying, there's a scene with 2 women and mermaid. That's all I'm gonna say. You have to watch the movie, but it kind of gets a little risque where I'm like, wait, this isn't a kids movie? Okay, I guess. Okay.
I guess the rating board was asleep during that scene, because normally they would slap on a PG-13 just for that alone.
Yes, imagine Ariel, but more risque, I would say. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, I really liked, like, my favorite part of the movie is probably Mr. B. I like his, like, backstory and all that, and how he does, like how he, I kind of like the other Mr. B more than the real Mr. B.
Yeah, 'cause he was,
especially when his, like, voice got all, like, dark and he's like, you never really know or something. That was one of my favorite parts in the movie.
I especially like that it's not both the parents that are after Coraline, it's just the mother, because the father's actually like one of her little cronies or slaves. So I like that they had one central villain instead of the entire world being out after Coraline. It's just the mother. I actually like that, because I was worried, it's like, oh man, we're gonna have too many villains in this. Like, no, not really. I mean, the others are just under the mother's control, but essentially she is the main bad guy. It's not the world itself, it's her. And I really like that. But the fact they are willing to go there and show the souls of dead children, that was insanely gutsy, and like that just took a lot of nerve for them to do that, and it still translated well. It didn't come across as too scary. It was more about implications rather than actually showing it. So I thought that was really cool. And they never actually said they were dead. They just said their souls were trapped.
I mean, as I took it, because like at the end of the movie, the other mother turns into like a spider creature, so you can infer like just a sneak peek to it, the miniseries that we're going to be talking about later on the lines, that he is inferring that she does lure in children, you know, with all these like treats and games and everything, and as soon as she like sews a bun in their eyes, she could like eat them. That's implied, but it's never really stated, but there are some things to indicate it, like how there's a very insect and spider motif throughout the whole movie. And another thing I will bring up about the movie is that I love like the animation of it, where they're able to do. I know they were able to do like different techniques and everything, and like there are literally moments where I'm like, wait, how were you able to do that with stop motion? That's very, you know, impressive, especially during that time, because there's one scene where Coraline actually falls off, I think, like a collapsing what would you say, like balcony, would you say, when she escapes,
Yes.
trying to get like the third eye in the movie, and just that kind of stuff is very impressive. It's like there's one scene where like the floor actually caves in and it turns into like a giant spider web. And so even back in like 2009, I believe when the movie came out, it was very impressive at the time.
Well, they did add in like some CG and After Effects on top of the stop motion, but I love how you brought up it, because that just makes me think all the 3 movies we picked have some weird connection. With It and Coraline, they have the spider eating children, and with It and Killer Clowns, well, it's about extraterrestrial clowns. So it's actually kind of cool how all our movies, we didn't plan this. All our movies actually have a weird connection, and I think that's really cool. So
yeah. Well, I think that's all we have to say about Coraline. The next movie we're going to look at is Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Stay tuned.
When you look at the number of disasters in the U.S., chances are every area will deal with some kind of emergency in the next decade. And between school, sports, and social lives, chances are you won't be with your kids when it happens. Will they know what to do? Ready.gov/kids has the educational tools and information to make the conversation easy. When the time comes, chances are they'll feel prepared, not scared. So talk with your family today.
Killer Clowns from Outer Space is a 1988 cult classic horror comedy film about extraterrestrial clowns who land on Earth to kill humans. Let's watch the trailer.
It was a night like any other night. Then something happened. You see that? Something different.
It's no shooting star.
Why here? Why now? Why clowns? They've been knocking them dead all over the universe.
What are you gonna do? Knock my block off?
Soon they'll be doing it at a theater near you.
Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Pizza?
Maybe they're just cruising through the galaxy and stopped here for a bite to eat.
You don't need a police pal, you need a psychiatrist. They want to play games? They're messing with the wrong guy.
What are you in for?
Killer Clowns from Outer Space. It's crazy.
So the reason I hated this movie as a kid is now the reason why I love it so much. Alien clowns. I feel like I was more afraid of the alien part than the clown part, because I've always kind of liked clowns. It was just more so outer space has always scared me. Like the idea of outer space and like things from it and like the sun exploding in like a million years scares me. So I think that's why I was scared of it, is because I've always been scared of like something coming to us rather than like something like, rather than clowns. The clowns I kind of got the comedy part of it from, but I think I've always just been scared of the aliens.
Well, it's interesting you picked this movie, seeing how in the past 5 years or so, it's had a massive resurgence in popularity. It's always been a cult classic, but now you're seeing t-shirts for it everywhere. Spirit Halloween has the masks and even animatronics for it, and even a video game is coming out very soon, and possibly a new sequel. So the film has gotten a massive resurgence, so, and for good reason. It's a funny movie. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much chalk this movie up to being like horror movie Looney Tunes in a way. And I also, when I was watching this movie, it reminded me of The Mask and everything. because like, and not The Mask, like the actual movie, the Mask, the comic books.
You mean the super gory one?
Yeah, super gory one. Because everyone's seen the comic book, it's pretty much, hey, what if we took Looney Tunes, but the jokes actually have consequences, that kind of thing. And it's like one of those things where, because I'm an adult, I'm not a kid, like, maybe I would be scared, but I just felt like I would just be laughing the whole time because it's just very absurd all the time. So, like, for me, it was never a moment where I was creeped out. I was just like, look, this is just very goofy and everything. Like, I could just see this being like a skit, you know what I mean?
Yeah, the fact that they managed to stretch it into a feature-length film and it actually works, that's very impressive. And this movie actually did kind of scare me a little bit when I first saw it. This is before I got really into horror movies in 6th grade. That was when I really started getting into scary films. But when I first saw this, I think I was maybe 8 or 9. And the movie itself didn't scare me as much as one particular scene when they showed all the cotton candy and stuff and they removed some of the cotton candy. You just saw like a red face that was like the color of blood. I remember when I saw that actually kind of freaked me out a little. But you actually had a little bit of interesting trivia about this film, about the film's title.
Yeah, so the reason why it's called Killer Clowns from Outer Space is they had to add the from outer space to it so people would stop thinking it was a slasher movie, because I guess at the time there was just a bunch of slasher movies coming out, so they wanted to really be like, no, this is a science fiction horror film, not a slasher film, because they wanted it, I guess they wanted people to know that it was science fiction more than horror.
That, and when you hear that title, you know that it's going to be goofy.
Yeah.
Like, if it was just called Killer Clowns, that could just be a bunch of psychos wearing clown makeup and going around killing people. But if you have the from outer space part, that immediately draws your mind as like, oh, alien clowns, dumb, fun, let's do this.
Yeah, like this movie, throughout the movie, reminds me of, Little Shop of Horrors, where it's just very campy, it's just for fun.
Yeah, it reminded me of Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. Basically had the same concept, parody of classic B movies, an absolutely absurd villain, and yeah, just pure low budget camp. That's what this reminded me of.
Or a movie you could think of as Leprechaun, the Leprechaun series.
Yeah.
Where it's not really, like, you can say it's just very, like, campy, the characters. To be honest with you, I didn't actually remember any of the main characters. I was just in it for the clowns when it comes to a lot of horror movies in general.
There was one thing about this movie that always confused me, and that's the ending. When the pies come down and hit the main character. It's like, it's like a little fun joke. They got hit with the pies and stuff while the clowns are leaving. But here's the thing that confused me. Earlier in the film, those same pies were filled with acid and killed people upon impact. Like, they even showed in the trailer, like, the cop getting obliterated by a bunch of pies, and the main characters, as soon as they got hit by the pies, they were all fine. They're just like, those clowns.
Oh, you did it again.
They just killed most of the people in the town, but those clowns. And I'm like, but those pies were lethal before.
Ooh, banana cream pie.
Yeah, it's like, so did the clowns replace them with real pies all of a sudden?
I mean, maybe the joke was that they were trying to convince the people, hey, we're going to kill you, but then the prank is that we're not going to kill you. So
but they did kill a lot of people, though. Like, so many people died.
But my thing is, like, maybe they were trying to do a 180, be like, you thought we're going to kill you, but we're going to leave you alive, but you're still scared, and we're traumatized you all, so I don't know, I'm just trying to make sense of stuff.
This movie actually inspired a Tim Burton film, Mars Attacks, particularly with the montage scene of all the clowns going around killing the townspeople. Mars Attacks actually had a very similar scene where they were going around the world killing a bunch of people in very goofy ways. And I really love that Killer Clowns from Outer Space. I actually kind of invented and came up with that because they were like, how are you going to fill out runtime? It's like, let's see how many creative ways we can have killer clowns from outer space kill people. And in an interesting way, this one movie that never got any sequels, despite the fact that every horror movie in the 80s got a bunch of at least straight to VHS sequels, this one movie had a higher body count than I think the entire Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. Because practically the entire town is dead by the end.
Oh, wow. You talking about sequels. You say they're making a sequel, right?
There are talks that they're going to continue the franchise. Like the original writers have said, there might be a new installment, but recently a new video game's been announced. I think it's going to be like an online game similar to the Friday the 13th game or Evil Dead game, where it's like a 4-player co-op versus the clowns.
Yeah. Right now, you can, if you sign up, you can play the beta on it. Because I think there's like a Discord where they kind of give updates right now.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think that I don't know if that's what they were referring to when they said the new installment of the franchise was coming out, or if they were referring, because there have also been rumors of a TV show on the Sci-Fi Network, and with the success of the new Child's Play TV series Chucky, that seems more likely. So I'm still waiting for either a sequel, a new TV show, but for right now, the fact that there's a video game shows this is a valuable property, and the fact that we're getting something new in this IP is really cool, and I hope that there's more down the line.
Do you think they're gonna do a thing where they're just trying to, make the clowns the good guys somehow because they're so popular? Because I've seen that with a lot of horror icons where, okay, they're the villains, but then they get really popular and they start, messing up.
Nah, I'm pretty sure they're gonna keep it the clowns are killing people in the most goofy ways possible. Maybe there'll be one clown that goes rogue and ends up becoming the hero or something, but they're gonna stick to their roots, I think, if they do make a sequel.
All right. Well, speaking of clowns, we're going to take a quick break and we're going to talk about the clown and the only clown that should scare you. We'll be right back.
My Shiro doesn't always wear a cape, but she always has time for a hug, a smile, for going the extra mile. My Shiro stretches every dollar, puts in long hours, puts others first. But now it's your time, Mom. When you're ready to retire, we want you to be able to enjoy it. It's time to start saving now. A free 3-minute online chat can give you the personalized tips you need to start boosting your retirement savings today. Visit aceyourretirement.org/Shiro.
It is a horror miniseries based on the book of the same name by writer Stephen King, and airing on ABC in 2 parts on November 18th and 20th in 1990. The film stars Tim Curry as the shape-shifting Pennywise, also known as It, who made people scream as well as laugh upon release. Check out the trailer. It absolutely terrified me. I remember seeing my parents watching it when I was about 4 years old. They would play the rerun for it all the time, back to back with both episodes. And it freaked me and my sister out exponentially to the point where if I went to a video store, just seeing the box art scared the crap out of me. Like, something about those, it's not even clowns themselves. I wasn't afraid of clowns as a kid. I liked clowns. It was the fact that he had those yellow eyes and the sharp teeth. And the fact he was going after children, which was completely new to me at the time. Like, I've never seen any kind of movie where kids are the main victim. So it scared the daylight out of me.
I thought clown was supposed to be my friend, not... No.
Yes, I didn't even know what it was called. I just always called it the scary clown movie. That's always what I call it. It's like, the scary clown movie.
If I ever watch this movie, I would be afraid to go to McDonald's. No, Mama, I don't want to go.
He was actually inspired by Ronald McDonald.
Oh, that even makes it worse. I like my clown food.
Yeah, the original book, he was described as looking like Ronald McDonald. And I actually did read the book. Because over the years, I grew to fall in love with this movie. Once I started getting into horror films, I remember I was watching this guy online called The Nostalgia Critic, who reviews movies. And he went over this movie as part of his Halloween special, and I remember he completely calmed my nerves. Even at the age of 13, I was still kind of afraid to watch it. But he decided, he even brought up, it's like, this movie is hilarious. I don't know why so many people are afraid of it. I was like, well, I'm glad I'm not the only one. But he said, I came up with an idea to calm your nerves. I came up with the Stephen King drinking game, where he points out all the funny things about it, but also gets drunk while talking about the film and taking a drink after every Stephen King trope. That's when I found out about the Stephen King tropes as well. And I hate to say it, but when I turned 21, I did the Stephen King drinking game with this miniseries with my friends. We were plastered about 30 minutes in.
Well, I guess you went down with a clown.
We went down with the clown. Basically, you take a drink with every stereotype of a Stephen King story. Like, it takes place in Maine. Childhood trauma, sidekicks, an alcoholic, a writer, bonus points if it's an alcoholic writer. Basically, stuff like that. And yeah, this movie was full of them. Even to the point where I would notice some that my friends and said, like, all right, we got to take a drink on that one. That's the car from Christine. That's a reference to another Stephen King story. That's a trope. And they were like, that was in the background. We could have skipped that one. But yeah, I love this movie now. I can watch it every Halloween, but it did really terrify me as a kid. What did you guys think?
I mean, this is the first time I ever watched the It miniseries. I mean, of course, I watched like the newest one that came out in 2017. And I've seen clips of the miniseries before, and I've seen reviews of it. And the thing about this movie is that I was just laughing at Tim Curry the whole time. Like,
Tim Curry's a riot.
Yeah, because like, okay, first of all, I was already cracking up because you got this Brooklyn, Jersey clown in the sewer.
Played by a British guy.
Yeah, talking to this boy, which appears to be in the daylight by them, like, mind you. He was like, hey man, I got some popcorn. There's a circus down there. And if I was a kid, I'd be like, where? What's going on there? Like, the thing about this movie is that, like, especially when they're adults, I just feel like Tim Curry just went off the rails. Because in the beginning, it felt like he was trying to be menacing. But then as soon as they became adults, he just started like acting a fool, especially in the library, where he just like, and
do you have Prince Albert in a can? You do? Well, you better let the poor guy out.
And I was like, okay, are you trying to put on your like comedic gag, or are you trying to be scary? What's going on?
Well, he is supposed to be a clown, and he's a good clown.
Yeah, he's a good clown, because I'm just like, okay, like there's a moment where I'm just like, man, just settle down.
Well, you have to understand, this was on network television. They couldn't go all the way because the book is terrifying.
Okay, and also the book is nasty.
Oh yeah, the book has some terrible things, and Stephen King has said, I was on a lot of drugs when I wrote that, so please omit some of it. And yeah, when they actually were remaking it, he told them to leave out a couple of specific scenes that I'm not going to mention on TV here. That is just downright terrible. But the book itself, Pennywise had a perfect balance of being both. He was funny. He had a couple funny moments, but he was really terrifying. And this movie or miniseries mostly focused on the comedy side with sprinkles of scary, because the makeup effects of the contacts and the sharp teeth were really good. Like, that's what terrified me as a kid. And with the remake, they focus more on the scary aspect and not much on the comedy, whereas the book was like a perfect balance of the two. But I do like that, there are two different versions. If you want something more funny and lighthearted, watch the original. If you want something actually really that will scare you, watch the remake. And similar to the remake, the part where the kids, best part. Same thing in the book. That was always a more interesting aspect. When they became adults, not so much. So I mostly recommend watch part one of both the miniseries and the remake.
See, I thought it was funny that you mentioned like being scared of the like cover, because my mom did the same thing with me with The Exorcist. She put what's her name? Reagan as our computer background, because she knew I liked to go on the computer at night.
That's mean.
Yeah, I would there was a point where I would literally not go into the living room because she was on the computer screen. So I definitely get that. And I also like that you guys mentioned that the original kind of focuses on comedy, whereas the new one's kind of like more serious. I do like in the new one, they kind of have, it's more of the kids being the comedy rather than the clown. But I don't like how serious he was.
That takes away from, because in the book, he was a clown. That's how he lured kids. Because Pennywise is a shapeshifter. He can turn into a bunch of monsters. In this movie, he became a werewolf, a mummy. But in the remake, it's like, what kid would want to be around that clown? Yeah. Like the original Tim Curry one, it's like, I could understand him luring kids because he actually was pretty funny and charming.
You could argue what kid will be around a clown in the sewer. Come on now.
A dumb one. All right, but I have to ask you guys, what are some of your horror movie ideas?
So I want to make horror movies,
So do
hopefully one day. And one that I'm really working on is based off the folklore of Baba Yaga, it's kind of like Hansel and Gretel, but not really. It's like this old woman, it's in Slavic folklore, who like chases a kid around the forest, and if they're kind enough, they can escape, but if they're not, they get eaten. And she has like a little house on like hind legs, so I thought that would be kind of cool to add. And technically, in like the original folklore, she also has like 3 sisters, but you know, they're all named Baba Yaga, so that would be fun to make.
That'd be kind of cool. I actually also have a script for a horror movie I've been writing for the past couple of years that's basically like a combination of like something like Evil Dead and Max Payne, in that it will follow mostly grief, and the monsters in the movie, we don't know if it's all in the main character's head or there actually is something in the woods after him, or if it's just a product of his own grief. So that's been something I've been working on for a while, and I still don't know how I want to end it. So it's still up in the air because I haven't been able to work on it for a while. But Alan, do you have any ideas?
I mean, I love watching horror movies, but I'm not really that much of a big horror movie a fan that much. I don't know, if I were to think of a horror movie, maybe it has something to do with, you know, very true horror thing. Because the thing that scares me the most is real people instead of the, you know, supernatural people. Because I find real people scary than anything a ghost will do to me.
Oh, I agree.
So that's all the time we have for today. Tune in next Thursday, my bad, where we will go into horror movies that change the genre. This has been The Verdict. Thank you for watching, and as always, stay horrified.